Welcome viewers to another episode on ASUG 12 exams. So in this episode we are looking at the 2021 Science Paper 1, which is basically physics. Let us move to section A, which carries 20 marks, and there are 20 questions which are multiple choice. So question 1 reads, when converted to a base unit in scientific notation, 2 GB is. So basically we need to convert 2 GB to base unit. So what is the base unit of information in computer storage and processing? So the base unit is known as basically a byte. That's the base unit. Then basically what's the relationship? So we know that we have basically byte, then we have megabyte, then we have GB. So we know that basically 1000 MB is equal to 1 GB approximately. Then we also know that basically 1 million bytes makes up 1 megabyte. This is the relationship. So converting basically GB to bytes, we need to multiply basically this by that, so which will just give us basically 1 billion bytes makes up basically 1 GB. That's what it means. So in this case, then 2 GB is approximately 2 billion bytes. That's what it implies. Then we write this 2 billion bytes to standard scientific notation, which will be basically 2 multiplied by basically we have 10 to the power a billion has got 9 zeros to the power 9. So what you notice, this is basically bytes. So D is the best answer in this case. So that's how you answer question 1. Move to question 2. Which of the following is a derived unit? So what you are saying is we are looking for derived unit in this case. We know that basically ampere is basically the base, which is the measure of current. Then Kelvin is temperature. Then meter is basically length, which is just the base. But Pascal is basically pressure, which is a derived measure, which is basically Newton per meter square. So you know D is the best answer in this case. So when you're talking about derived unit, you are saying is basically the measure that is derived from another one. Like volume is a derived measure from length. Let us look at question 3. A car moving at 3 meters per second increases its velocity uniformly to 9 meters per second in 4 seconds. Find the uniform acceleration of the car. So the question is asking us to find the uniform acceleration of the car. Then we've been given the initial velocity, then final velocity and the time. And you know that acceleration is given by final velocity minus initial velocity divided by change in time. So the final velocity is 9 meters per second minus initial velocity, which is 3 meters per second, over change in time, which is 4 seconds. Then we end up with 9 minus 3 is 6 over 4. Then 4 into 6 is 1, remainder 2. 4 into 2 is 0.5. So we have basically about 1.5 meters per second square as our basically acceleration, which is basically A. So A is the answer in this case. Let us look at question 4. A rock weighed 8 Newton on the moon where the acceleration due to gravity is 1.6 Newton per kg. Calculate the mass of the rock on Earth where the force of gravity is 10 Newton per kg. So basically we are required to calculate the mass of the rock that weighs 8 Newton on the moon where the gravity is 1.6 Newton per kg. So we know that a force is given by a mass times acceleration, which is the same as mass times gravity. So what have we been given? We've been given the force, then also the gravity on the moon. Then we have to find the mass of the rock on Earth. Now remember, once we determine the mass of the rock on the moon, that mass remains the same whether on Earth or on the moon. The mass is the amount of matter contained in an object. So to find mass, given gravity and force, is basically mass is equal to a force divided by gravity, which will be the same as basically 8 Newton, which is the force, divided by gravity, which is 1.6. Then this will give us basically 5 kg. So 5 kg is basically the mass, which is B. We move to question 5. The following diagram shows a pilot in air after jumping from a plane. As he falls, how will the size of the forces acting on him change before he attains terminal velocity? So terminal velocity basically in this case is the maximum velocity reached by a free falling object in basically air or fluid, or it could be water or liquid. So basically that's what you're looking for. What's the maximum? So before it reaches the maximum, what it means is basically the velocity is increasing, so meaning is accelerating at the first time it jumps. So now what will happen is basically the downward force will start basically reducing, reducing. Then the upward force pushing upward, pushing against him here. Then there is a downward. This downward will be reducing, then this will be increasing until at the point where these two are basically equal. Where these two are basically equal to each other. When these two are basically equal to each other, what it means is basically is going to reach the terminal velocity. So the downward force should be basically decreasing, which is in this case not increasing, decreasing. So A and B are out. Then the upward force should be increasing. So what you notice here in this case also D is out because of this. Then the resultant force, which is the difference between the downward and the upward, should be decreasing until it reaches 0. When it reaches 0, it means these two are equal. So C is basically the best answer in this case. So this is how you answer this question. Let us look at question A6. The following diagram shows a 30 centimeter spanner used to turn a nut with a force of 60 newtons. Find the moment of the force. So the question is asking us to find the moment of the force. And we know that a moment of force M is given by a basically force multiplied by the perpendicular distance. So we need to have a perpendicular distance to the force. So we notice that the force is this direction, so the distance should be in this direction, so that this angle is perpendicular. So we know the distance from this is the point of pivot, because this is where the rotation is happening. So what you notice is this distance is basically 30 centimeter, which should be converted to basically meters by dividing by 100, because there are 100 centimeters in 1 meter. We end up with 0.3 meters. So remember, distance should be in meters. Then a force is 60 Newton, so we have basically 60 multiplied by 0.3. We are going to end up with basically 18 newtons meters as the moment of force. So basically, if you check on the answers, you notice that here there is no answer. The answer is supposed to be 18, so this should be a free mark. So the answer should be 18 because you notice this is 1800, which is not correct. Then this is 1.8, which is also not correct. So if you say the guess, it could be the closest is basically A, but there is no answer. This is a free mark. Let us look at question 7. The following diagram shows a thermal flask. Identify the parts or the part that prevent heat loss by convection. So the question is asking us to identify the part or the parts from this flask, the thermal flask, that would basically prevent heat loss or the transfer of energy by convection. So because it's convection, we need basically to understand how does heat transfer occur by convection. Now basically what is expected is for you to understand or to know the three types in which heat energy is transferred between objects. So basically there are three. The first one is basically conduction. Then we have convection, which we are being asked to know. Then number 3, we have radiation. So once you know these three, it's much more easier to answer this question. So now talking about conduction, what are we talking about? So this is basically the transfer of heat energy through direct physical contact. So they need to be direct physical contact, and this is in objects. So if you put a pot on a stove, the hot plate will transfer the heat energy to the pot for the water to start boiling. That's physical contact, and that's the object, and that's the conduction. When you're talking about convection, so convection is basically we are talking about the transfer of heat energy by movement of fluids. Now when you're talking about fluids in physics, fluids means liquids or gases. So these two are the one that makes fluids. So the transfer of heat energy by the movement of molecules in forms of liquid or gases is convection. Then lastly, we have basically radiation, which is basically the form of basically heat transfer that occurs when electromagnetic radiation is emitted or absorbed. Then that's radiation. These are the three ways in which heat energy can be transferred between objects. Then the first two, these, because they need molecules, they will require a medium. So conduction and convection requires basically atoms, molecules, or ions to transfer heat energy. Then the last one, radiation, does not require these. So the first two, conduction and convection, cannot occur in a vacuum, because in a vacuum there are no particles, so there are no atoms, molecules, or ions, so there is no media. So the first two cannot happen in a vacuum. Then radiation can occur in a vacuum. So now let us identify. So we need to find the parts where basically convection cannot occur. So, and what are the parts that can stop heat loss or transfer of energy by convection? So let us start with E. What is E? So E itself is a stopper, and this is mostly made of rubber. So the purpose of this is to prevent heat loss through conduction. So E is basically solid, so it's through conduction, so to prevent through conduction. Next we move to F, which is a vacuum. So a vacuum, basically we know that heat transfer cannot occur in the vacuum through conduction and convection, but it can occur through radiation. E cannot stop by convection, so whatever there is E, so A is out and C is out, remain with B and D. Then we know that F is both conduction and convection. Then G is a double-odd glass. So the double-odd glass is basically there to minimize the transfer of heat energy by conduction and convection. So these two, they prevent transfer of heat energy by conduction and convection. So which one minimizes or prevent heat loss by convection? So it's basically F and G. So what you notice in this case, D is the best answer. Let us look at question 8. Which of the following is not true about dull black surfaces? They are, so we are looking for something which is not true. So dull surfaces are good absorbers of heat, which is true. So A is correct. B, emitters of heat, true. C, reflectors of heat, they are bad. Reflectors of heat. You see, the white or shine surfaces that are the good reflectors of heat. So C is incorrect there. D, radiators, good radiators of heat, is also correct. So C is the correct answer in this case, which is not true. Just to emphasize, it must be noted that black or dull surfaces are good absorbers and are also good emitters of basically heat. Then on the other hand, white or shine surfaces are poor absorbers and poor emitters. Let us look at question 9. The following diagram shows an object placed in the path of a beam of light. What terms best describe the shadows H, J, and K? So what we need to do is to identify these shadows at H, J, and K. Then we have basically umbra, penumbra. So what we need to do is, for us to answer this question, we need to understand what these terms means. So start with basically umbra. So umbra is basically the central core of darkness. So basically we are saying umbra is basically formed from a point of source of light. So the point of source of light is basically the umbra, and that is the area of total shadow. So basically umbra should be at the central part of the shadow. You will notice in this case J is the central part, which is J. So J should be basically umbra. Then on the other hand, when you're talking about penumbra, you are saying basically this is the outer cone of the partial shadow, which basically diverges, okay, instead of tapering, and that is basically the penumbra. So penumbra, in other words, is basically the extended source of light forming the shadow. So is that shadow formed from extended source of light, the outer part of light. So basically when you're talking about penumbra, it's basically faint because it's a outside part of the entire shadow. So basically H should be basically outside. This is the central point of the shadow because the shadow will come direct here. Then the extended H and K should be the outer side of this entire shadow. So H and K should be penumbra. So we look for J. J should be umbra. So A is out. Then we remain with B and C. So we know that H should be penumbra. So basically C is out, so remaining with B and D. Then K should also be penumbra. We notice that it's only D, which should be correct because J is ambler. So D is the correct answer in this case. So it's a matter of understanding the difference between ambler and the penumbra. Penumbra is the outer space of the shadow. Then ambler is the central point of the shadow. Let us look at question 10. Which of the following is true about images formed by plane mirrors? So plane mirrors, they are A, diminished. No, they are not diminished. The image formed in the mirror are just the same size as the one of the object. So A is incorrect, magnified, and B, they are all incorrect. They are the same size as of the object. C, upside down. So basically this is not true. The image formed basically upright, not upside down. Then the virtual. So basically they are virtual image formed by plane mirrors. So D is basically correct. Let us look at question 11. The following diagram shows an image produced by a biconvex lens. The diagram is drawn to scale. Which position, A, B, C, or D, shows the correct position of the object? So basically what we are required is to locate where the object should be. Then we are told that we have a biconvex lens, which is in this case means we have a double. Remember the word bi means double convex lens. So the double convex lens ensures that basically the rays of light that travel parallel to its principal axis are converged. So they converge. That's the purpose. What else have we been given? So we've been given the focal point, because we need to know the focal point, which is F. So the focal point from the lens is this distance. Then the other side of the focal point will be basically D. So this should be F1 or just F. Then the double, this will be 2F. Then this side, the double here will be also 2F. Now remember, the biconvex or double convex lens has got two focal points, both side and the other side. Just that here to emphasize. That's what you need to know. So now, based on that, let us now find where the object should be, given that the image is this one. This is where the image is. So now we notice we can look out some few points. So we know that it cannot be at A, because if it's at A, then the image will be from this side. It can't be that side. Then of course it cannot be at D, because D is beyond F2. So if it's here, basically the image will be formed the other side. So it can't be at D. So remain with B and C. So if you look at B, if I was to draw the object here, remember the ray need to pass through the focal point. So it can't pass through here, because if it passes through here, it will be difficult. So I draw a parallel line, which is the ray of light from the object. Then it will pass through basically the focal point like this. Then also another ray pass through the optical center, which is in this case here, it will pass like this. So now here there is no room where these two will meet. So the only part, because since they are not parallel, the only part where these two can meet is on top. So they will come and meet somewhere at here. So this is where the image will be formed if the object is at B. So this is what you notice is B will be the correct position for the image to be formed, which will be just F 0.5 of F. Then F is here. So if it's at the middle of, then it will be formed at F exactly. So B is the correct answer. Let us look at question 12. The following diagram shows a ray of light emerging from water into air, which labeled arrow shows the direction of the ray in air. So basically, the question is requiring us to show the direction. So before we answer, we need to understand the two media. So we have air, which is less denser in between these two. Then water is a more denser media. So now if the ray of light is coming from a more denser to a less denser, it bends away from the normal. Then if it's moving from a less denser to a more denser, it bends towards the normal. So what we need to do is we need to draw a perpendicular line at the boundary where the incident ray, this one, is striking the boundary. So this is the normal, then this is 90 degree. So now among this, which one is showing the bending away from the normal? We know D is not correct. This is a reflection, which is the bouncing back. Then C is incorrect because it's following the perpendicular line, which is the normal, which is not true. Then basically what we see is B is maintaining the same path, meaning the two media are the same. So B is incorrect. So we know that A is the best answer. Number 13. A siren from an ambulance or police car has a very high pitch. Which of the following can change the pitch of a sound wave? So basically, what can change the pitch of the sound wave? This is basically a frequency. So basically, the pitch, this is because the pitch of sound depends on the frequency. The higher the frequency, the higher the pitch, and the lower the frequency, the lower the pitch. Then on the other hand, the loudness of sound depends on the amplitude of the wave. So the larger amplitude basically produces a louder sound. So this is because a larger amplitude tend to have more energy, hence creating more loudness. So this is what you need to know about these. So basically, this is how you answer question 13. We move to question 14. Which of the following materials is more suitable for making permanent magnets? So for permanent magnets, you use steel. Steel is what you use for permanent magnet. Then iron is for temporal magnet. So this one again is straightforward. Number 15. The leaves of a positively charged electroscope diverged when a charged body was brought near it. This proves that the body was, so we have positively charged leaves, then we bring the charged electroscope, then these leaves, they diverge. So they cannot diverge if basically there is a repulsion, and the repulsion only occurs if basically we have the same charge. Remember the law of electrostatic, which is the first law, states that basically like charges repel each other, then unlike charges attract each other. So for to diverge, it means there is a repulsion. So meaning this should be basically a positively charged also. So you notice that A is the best answer in this case. Number 16. The following circuit diagrams show 3 bulbs of equal resistance connected to a 6-volt power supply. Which diagram will all the bulbs light the brightest? So basically, what you need to use here is basically compare the potential difference in the parallel circuit and the series circuit. So in the parallel circuit, the voltage or potential difference across the resistor is the same. Does not change as long as the resistance are in parallel. So if you look at A, they are in series, so they will be shared between the component. They will not be the same, so A cannot be the case. So for it to be the brightest, it means they should have the same amount of voltage or potential difference. If you look at B, is also basically a series, because if one goes off, then the others will go off. Similarly for A and B, so these are out. If you look at C, basically two bulbs are in series. So if you compare this one, if this one goes off, basically these will go off, all of them. So again, it's a series, meaning the potential difference of voltage received by this one is different from the one received by this one. Then if you go to D, you see that D, all of them, they are in parallel. If this one goes off, these two will still be on. If this one goes off, this one will still be on. So if either one of them goes off, then the other one will still be on. So D is the correct answer, because potential difference in parallel circuit is the same across all the resistors. We move to question 17. A air dryer is made of two heaters with a power rating of 400 watt each and a fan motor with power rating of 100 watts. Calculate the cost of using the air dryer for 2 hours if a unit of electricity costs 50 ngwe. So basically we have this air dryer made up of two heaters, then each heater is 400 watts. So for us to find the cost, which is we are required to calculate, we need to find the unit used in kilowatt per hour, then multiply by the cost, because this cost is kilowatt per hour. So let us find the unit used, which we'll call X. So what we do is basically we have two heaters, which is 400 times 2, then plus basically this one, which is 100. We get basically 2 times 4 is 800 plus we have 900 watts. Now these watts need to be converted to kilowatts, so we need to divide by basically 1000, because there are 1000 watts in 1 kilowatt. So basically we divide by 1000, we are going to end up with 0.9 kilowatts. Now we multiply this by the time to make it kilowatts hours. So it's 2 hours, so we have 0.9 multiplied by 2, so we have basically 1.8 kilowatt hour. This is the unit, standard units. Then multiply by the price per unit, so we have basically 1.8 multiplied by the price to find the cost, which is 0.5. We end up with 0.9 kwacha. So 0.9 kwacha is the answer, which is B. We move to question 18. The following diagram shows a piece of steel placed inside a solenoid. So we have the solenoid, is this one, then we have a piece of steel, which is used to make permanent magnets. If the switch S is closed and opened several times, the end A of the steel bar becomes, so basically the end would be, in this case, because it's steel, should be a permanent magnet. So for temporal, our temporal is iron, so anything temporal is out. Remember, steel is for permanent. Then we remain with B and C. So we need to determine whether A is north or south. So to determine that, we need to use basically the right hand grip rule. So basically what we do is we bring our right hand and hold it like a grip, where our fingers points in the direction of the movement of current. So the current is moving up, down, inside like this. So this is how we hold. Then our thumb will point in this direction. So the thumb points on north. Then the other side will be south. So A is south. If you hold it using our right hand as a grip, then we'll notice that S will be basically south. So south but permanent. So you notice that C is the correct answer. Let us look at question 19. What is the use of the odd filament in a cathode ray oscilloscope? It is to, so this one is straightforward. It is basically used to eat the cathode basically. So B is the correct answer in this case. Move to question 20. Strontium 90 undergoes a beta decay to produce element Y. Which of the following shows the decay equation? So this is basically a beta, so we need to show the decay equation. So the standard decay equation is we have A, then X, then Z, which is atomic number, then decomposition, so it will be A. The mass number remains the same. We have a new element Y, then Z plus 1 for a beta decay, then basically plus this electron. So in this case we have 90, basically 38, then SR, then this decays to basically 90 remains the way it is, which is Y. Then we are going to have basically 39, then plus basically 0, then E negative. So you look for this. So what you notice here in this case, basically this need to be 39, not 37. So this one is out. Then this one need to be 39 out, and this need to be a negative. Then we have 39. So between C and D, which one is correct? We notice that this is a positive. So negative times positive is a negative. So idea this one, if this is negative, it means this whole thing is negative. So what you notice, D is the best answer. This one, it means we are adding this one becoming 40, not 39. This one, it means the overall here is 38 here and 90. So D is the correct answer.